Welcome everyone to Therapeutic Astrology podcast. As you may know, I interview here authors and artists and thought leaders from many different fields actually, but what draws me to them is that they somehow reconnect us with wisdom that transcends time and also help us heal. But as the name suggests, therapeutic astrology, this is a passion of mine. And once in a while, I have the privilege of interviewing another therapeutic astrologer on the show. And today is one of those days. So with me, I have Jessica DiRuzza from Trust Psyche. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you. And I love that we're kindred spirits with therapeutic astrology. I think that's super awesome. So thank you.
Yes, yes, this blend of psychology and astrology. And I've found that there are numerous ways of combining them, actually. I mean, we
Hmm.
say this thing, therapeutic astrology, but it can lead many ways. It can have many shapes. So, actually, my first question for you is around that. How do you use astrology in your psychotherapeutic practice?
I think I've used it in just about every way you could imagine under the sun.
Okay.
I've been a psychotherapist for 15 years and an astrologer for 20. And so I have had a lot of experience of working with all different kinds of people from all walks of life around the world. And I think my general, intention when I'm doing this work is just to meet my clients wherever they're at. And so within the therapeutic space, I welcome everything. And that means that I've used astrology in just about every way anybody has asked me to, because my deepest commitment is to be with the soul that's in front of me and to help facilitate or midwife whatever it is that they're going through at the time. And I could give different examples of that,
Mm-hmm.
but for me it's infinite and there's no limit to it. And that's how is astrology used in it. Like, okay, I can look at my clients' charts and transits with them. I can help them plan events in the future. I can help them integrate things from the past. I can help them look at their synastry with people they might be interested in, all those things. But then there's a whole other part of it, which is how am I using it clinically to help support me as a therapist to do better work with my clients? And it's almost like there are two different categories going on.
Do you feel that's separate though? Because, I mean, what you're talking about there in the end, is it to see the person's birth chart so you know how best to help?
Hmm. Yeah, so I study everyone's chart to help me
Yeah.
understand what's going on here, this lifetime with this person, their strengths, areas they need support, all of those things we can see in a chart. But also, like, for example, the new moon in Cancer just happened, and I had a full day of sessions, and every single client was bringing in new moon and Cancer material, dealing with issues with their mother, dealing with issues with home, dealing issues with their children. And so I see that world transits move through in a day, but then I also let it guide me because I know what a new moon in Cancer is looking for in the seeding of a new cycle. And so it helps me facilitate and orient towards where their psyche or their unconscious is telling me they need to go by what they're saying as I understand it through the new moon in Cancer. And that allows me to help them go in that direction and focus and attune to that, like, as one example.
And I want to say to the listeners, because many people only listen to this as audio, and this is excellent. I actually really value that we don't have to look at each other all the time. I'm a
Yeah.
Pisces, I like to be invisible. But the thing is, with Jessica DiRuzzo, many of your videos, we get that body language as well. Have you
Hmm.
noticed that from yourself? It's like, yeah, I'm sure you have, but I'm just mentioning it that it's like it's part of the language and it helps me understand you. What
Oh,
have you noticed? What do you think about it? I'm sure
yeah,
you've
that
noticed, but what is it for
thank
you to
thank you
use the
so
body?
much. Yeah, that thank you so much. I have moon trine Uranus, and so my relationship with astrology is very much through the body. It's somatic. It's I'm also a feeling function person in the Jungian sense, and so I feel everything first, and then the words come, and my moving of the body is so that the archetypes or the energies can move through my system. And I think of it as like I'm just a channel or a conduit for what wants to come through. My grandmother was also a dancer and a choreographer, so I grew up in a home where embodiment was just part of life. And I also have Mars trine Venus, and I love to dance. But it's a huge part of the way that I try to help bring in the multidimensionality of the energies versus just through spoken word.
Yeah, yeah, and I also saw that when you say that in several of your videos, like just tuning in first, and then it will come through you. And I've
Mm-hmm.
had that on different in different astrology schools. So different astrologers work with this. Some don't at all, but some do, and from and different ways. Some will say like, okay, just tune out bird eye view of when you're looking at the chat. That's one way to do it. And other people will be more like you, like drop in, and then it comes. I mean, that's part of the same movement you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we all have our own way into the astrology, and my role is to help empower each individual to have their unique relationship with the divine and with astrology. And so my way is like this, but I really enjoy getting every person to bring what their natural abilities are and then use that with the astrology. So like a lot of my students, they're artists. So they bring the visual arts. I have a student who's a dancer, she dances. I have a student who's a yoga instructor. She does it with yoga, and it's just like, no, we're looking, the astrology is something that is meant to come through you in the way that you're built.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's supposed to take us deeper. So now we're talking about this connection to also our psychology, and I'm also curious in your healing work, because this is the same thing. We have to go down in into the lower levels of our psyche in order to really heal, right? Rather than just talk with a busy mind. So
Yes.
this is sort of the same thing that we have to do with the astrology. For it not to be so mental, we kind of have to tap in deeper.
I love that. That's so beautiful. Yes, so much so. That's right. For it to not just stay in the mind or the intellect, but to drop down into the body, into the real human experience, which is so much more than the mind, but so much astrology these days, and the way that I hear it, that's what's happening is it's like we're talking about it as if it's outside of us or it's over there. We're somehow removed from it. And it's no, we're living inside of mind, we're living inside of psyche, and it lives inside of us paradoxically at the same time. But this is the mind of God, as one way you could think of it, and the heart of the goddess. Like we're in it. And so part of what we need to learn how to do is to come back into that sense of animism if
Mhm.
we're really wanting to have a deeper connection with the astrology and with source to alchemize our souls in the soul making process that astrology can be when we allow it to, that's when we really start to see the gifts and the power of it versus us just kind of analyzing it and talking about it.
Yeah, yes, I love you saying it like that, because that's the conflict sometimes I feel with astrology. And when people hear I use it therapeutically, but then they only come that one time, that's the leftover from astrology, right? That's like I come one time in my life, maybe. Then it's difficult to go into those spaces.
If you're looking to have any kind of real change or kind of doing core work, which is really where we're looking to change dynamics or patterns in our life, or we're wanting support and going into our trauma and into things that have been hard for us. That takes time. It
Yeah.
takes real time, and it first requires building safety between the therapist and the client, which takes repetition and time before one is able to open up at the levels that we need to go into those places where we have shame or we have, embarrassment, or we feel that there's something wrong with us. Most people carry those things, those burdens, those secrets, those issues. And in order to get support there, you first need to feel that you're in a space with someone who is understanding and compassionate and non-judgmental. And most people who are have experienced trauma, they need a lot of time before they can go to those places, understandably.
So how do you do it? Because I do like, okay, then I have this session called astrology. It's always going to be therapeutically, but then it's just going to be like more of a reading. And then I have, you can come several times to the therapy. But how do you do it then? Because people might also want you to actually read their chart, right?
You're right. So I used to give readings and I no longer do readings. I only will look at people's charts if they're my therapy client because I no longer want to engage in one-time relationships.
Okay.
But if someone wants to come be my therapy client, I will look at their chart with them as much and as often as they like, but it's going to be within the container of our therapy client relationship.
Oh, cool. That's a good concept. That's a good framework for it. Yeah, I admire that. And then you teach as well, right? You have
Yeah. Yeah.
students.
I teach people from beginning to professionals, essentially how to do what I do. So whether that's doing astrology personally or professionally, and then I work with a lot of other therapists who are integrating the astrology into their practices.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting to be working with those. Okay.
Yeah.
But Jessica, I actually wanted to talk to you today about neurodiversity because that's a theme of yours.
Mhm.
And yeah, maybe we should just begin like how do you feel that it's relevant to use astrology specifically for neurodivergence?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so neurodiversity just means that we all have different brains and minds and neurotypes, and all of us process the world in different ways. And so neurodiversity is the understanding that different kinds of brains are going to make meaning in different ways. And one of the main things we do in astrology is we make meaning, we are interpreters. And it turns out that, a lot of astrologers are called to this work because of their pattern recognition, because of their special interest in people or psychology. And it turns out that people who are neurodivergent, ADHD, autistic, um, uh, even bipolar, are really drawn to astrology because it works very well with how their brains work. Symbolic pattern recognition, tracking things over long periods of time. I mean, astrology is a very complex system when you hold in your mind all the things that there are to hold into it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, to say the
And
least. Yeah.
it takes a special kind of unique neurotype to be able to do that. And so, for example, I'm autistic and ADHD, and astrology has been the only thing that I have not grown tired of because it's endless in what we can do with it.
This
And
I can relate to. This I can really relate to. Yeah,
yes,
this is,
right? It's
I
just
feel
so, yeah,
there's so many themes. I'm an interviewer and I find so many themes, but astrology seems like it can never satisfy me, and that's good. It's a good thing. Like
right?
I, I keep having revelations with this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a very common trait for people who are neurodivergent. That need of never being bored or
Yeah.
satiated by whatever it is that they're into. And astrology is one thing that really can provide that for people. And
Yeah.
so it's my thought that I think a lot of people who are called to astrology in a deep way are likely neurodivergent, whether they know it or
It's so interesting. We're gonna start to look after that now. Okay. Okay.
not.
Mm. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
Did you? Okay, Sudha, I have many questions, but were you finished with your answer?
Yeah. You
Yes.
can go keep
That's
asking.
a good place to pause. Okay.
Hmm.
Because another thing that I've heard you say is that helping professionals, like any helping professionals, are often, oh, neurotypical. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
No.
no, I think that there's probably a good many people who let's go with you know, therapists uh are neurodivergent. I
Okay,
think
that's what.
I think that oftentimes you're called to become a therapist first because you're trying to understand your childhood, you're trying to understand yourself. You probably have experienced enough trauma that it was a path of likely salvation. And then you realize you were really interested in it, and then you wanted to do it and you wanted to support other people and something that's been supportive to you. And I think there's a good amount of us who are actually neurodivergent within the helping professions. And the
Okay.
helping profession we're in is our special interest that we've devoted our entire life to.
Hmm. Okay, so I made a spelling mistake here, saying
Mm-hmm.
typical, but it's neurodivergence as well for any helping professional. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and that's what we're experiencing these days, and why I really think it's so relevant. You speak a lot about it, and I want to speak to you about it. That because we have this movement of people who are getting diagnosed and understanding themselves and their challenges and gifts through that lens. So, how does it mirror in the birth chart that you are
Yeah,
neurodivergent?
yeah, this one's an interesting conversation because I'm gonna say something that's evocative and maybe it will even sound contradictory, but I'm hoping I can say it in a way that we can hold paradox, which is just holding the tension of two opposing things that are simultaneously true. So my evocative statement is I think any birth chart can be neurotypical or neurodivergent. I don't think that there is a correlative signature in a natal chart that determines or says you're going to be what neurotype you're going to be. I think that you could truly look at any chart and not know if the person's going to be neurotypical or neurodivergent. But what I do think is that once you do know, for example, if someone is ADHD, and then you look at the chart, that the way that they are expressing and experiencing that chart is through the neurotype of ADHD. And then we might perhaps see some signatures where we go, oh, yeah, that makes sense, the ADHD there. But because roughly 10% of the population is ADHD, this is what the most progressive, forward thinking people think now. About 10% of the population is neurodivergent.
Okay.
That means that, in any given second, let's say 200 birth charts are born, about 10% of the birth chart of this moment is going to be ADHD.
Yeah. And what do you mean by that? What does that mean that the 10%?
Yeah, so like, okay, let's just say like in this moment, 100 babies are born in this very
Yeah.
second. And the world transits then become their birth chart. I'm saying 10 of those people out of those 100 are going to be ADHD. They're going to be because you're born with your neurotype. It's not something that right happens. It's biological, it's physiological. So you're born ADHD, you're born autistic, it's genetic. It's 80 to 90% inherited. And so if you're born autistic, then right now 10 of the 10 people being born are going to be neurodivergent in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but so that makes you conclude that it doesn't matter to look for it in the birth chart. Okay.
Mm-mm.
Okay, that's what you mean. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's
And
it's something that's separate from it, but then I'm saying like, okay, but could you look at my chart and see the ways that I'm neurodivergent?
yeah.
Kind of, right? Sort
Yeah.
of. So that's what I mean. Like it's kind of what I'm saying sounds contradictory, but like,
No. No, I don't think it does, because that's the thing where you twins and we can be born at the same time and have different expressions. So if you know one is an alcoholic, one is this or
yeah,
that, then you can see how that person is and what could help that person, right?
that's a good analogy. Yeah.
So I don't think it's contradictory, but it is an interesting thought, because I think I've joined the many astrologers of trying to figure out what is the signatures, and there are many of them. Is
Mhm.
it fire? Is it water, air? I mean, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of signatures for it. So it's a good. Yeah, I like that. So just if I know that the person has it, then I can look for it. But
Mm-hmm.
but either way, I would never suggest that a person have had any diagnosis, because that would just be unethical, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it depends. Like I think yes, generally speaking, I don't think especially astrologers should be going around and diagnosing people. But I do think there are situations where if you are therapeutically trained to be able to see and someone's coming to you and they're wondering, I think you can facilitate a conversation that could really help that person make more sense of themselves and then give
Mhm.
them the resources to go and look for it. I'm not going to go, yeah, you know what, you're autistic. But I would say, I'm seeing in you patterns and traits that remind me of autism. Have you ever considered that? Is that something you've looked into?
Mhm.
I would
And so,
maybe do that.
yeah, yes, that makes sense. And then, but if you then saw the chart and could you have in your mind to think, okay, maybe assume maybe this person has some
Mm-hmm.
neurodivergence. Could you have that before meeting the person, or would you never have that assumption?
Um, I would never have that assumption. It's tricky because um, I am particularly sensitive to be able to see neurodivergence
Mm.
because I'm neurodivergent, because my daughter is autistic, because I work with mostly people who are neurodivergent, and
Mhm.
it's one of my special interests. I can see it pretty quickly. And I also am a very intuitive person. I'm Pisces rising, I'm Sun, Mercury, Neptune, triple conjunction. And so I sometimes will get a really clear hit, but I
Mm.
won't like come out the gates with it. I'll let it reveal itself if it's meant to be revealed within our time together. But I'm not going
In
to go in with the agenda of pointing it out.
No, sure. Okay, okay. Yeah, okay. I am feeling the paradox a little bit too. Yeah, they are with you. Yeah, I
Mhm.
see. Yeah, okay. Have you ever looked at the Bad Bunny's chart?
No.
Okay. Something for a later
Okay.
hobby. Anyway, I couldn't help to think. But then there's the whole thing of environment, and you say that it's genetic, but then that's also affected by the environment you grew up in, even the genetics are. So sometimes it's hard to see the difference between there's an overlap anyway between HDHD and complex trauma.
Yeah, I think there's just this part of the complexity of being human and the way psyche works is it's like, for example, um, every birth chart like grew up within being in synastry to your parents, for example. And your parents' charts are the invisible background that are touching the different planets in your chart and shaping and forming and co-creation and one of the most primary formative intimate relationships we have in our life, whoever your caregivers, your parents are. And that very much influences how we experience our parts of our chart. If your parent has Jupiter on your ascendant, that's a very different experience than if your parent has Saturn on your ascendant. But we don't see that when we look at the chart, right? And so your parents' charts, as one example, as the invisible background that is in the environment shaping and co-creating with your psyche and your chart.
I'm just still at where you said that's the invisible background of the chart.
Yeah.
That really stays with me. Wow. Yeah. So your parents, I guess siblings, but especially parents, whoever took care of you when you were little, their chart is actually the invisible context.
Yes. And your chart is their personal transits, the moment that you were born,
Yeah.
that they live with for the rest of their life through the
Yeah.
relationship with you. And so you represent an encapsulation of a moment in time. And the birth chart is deceptive because we often treat it as a snapshot of a moment in time, but actually it's part of a continuous process that, yes, you are embodying and living out this life, but it's always within an interconnected web of relationships with all the psyches around you and all of their charts. And that's where synastry in particular with family systems is really important for us to bring in, because you don't see a full picture by just looking at the birth chart.
This is this is brilliant as a bridge to therapy, right? Like this is what we know from therapy, systems therapy. Like you can't just focus on one individual. And yet we often do that in astrology. I mean, I'm sure astrology also knows that the synastry that you're talking about, but it's really important to remember how
Mm-hmm.
connected we are and formed by the other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sense of hyper individualism or the atomistic astrology, the way that we have kind of forgotten about and decentered synastry. Most people just focus on the natal chart and transits or progressions. Um, but to bring a systems view back into the astrology and say, well, actually, synastry seems like maybe it should be primary, because we're all born out of relationship and we're all become who we are through the myriad of relationships we're in. And synastry shows us that astrologically, and then psychologically, things like family systems and IFS, internal family systems, continues to show us that. So, how do we actually start practicing blending those together to honor that psychological truth that we know about the human condition?
Okay, I have a few questions now for you. So, okay, I just feel like I'm tempted to ask you what modalities you're using, what interventions. Like, do you use IFS or?
Mm-hmm. So if I had to put into words what I do is, first and foremost, I'm relational. So the relationship is primary. I do attachment-based therapy. So I work with people on a weekly basis, ongoing through the different cycles of life. I'm emotionally focused. I'm somatically trained. I'm trauma informed.
Mhm.
I could do IFS. I could do a lot of modalities, but I don't practice any one modality. I focus on whatever it is the client is needing, and then I do that. And I facilitate whatever that process is, and holding hopefully safe and sacred space to be able to have come forward whatever it is that is wanting to emerge through them. So if
Okay,
if I want to use IFS, I can, but there's not some certain thing that I do. I don't have a protocol or anything like that.
okay, okay. Yeah, okay, good. Okay, sounds really good. Yeah, I mean, the reason I ask about internal family systems is just that parts work way of working is it's like evident. Like, okay, you can use the planets or the elements, however you want to use your birth chart as representing a part of you.
Mm-hmm. And for some people, that's a really great
It's
way
one
for
of the
them,
many
right?
ways. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
But then it's like, and this is probably also the Pisces rising, but it's like, I I like to be fluid. I like to be flexible. I like to be adaptable. So like for some people that doesn't do it for them. So I'm gonna shift modes and
yeah,
bring the astrology in a way that they connect and relate to it.
for sure.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, that's
but
the
like
most important.
I have a client, for example, who's like not her core value is not motivated by self-improvement. That doesn't do it for her. That's not a core value. Her core value is living a spiritual life.
Yeah.
So when I bring in my interventions, um, so to speak, I'm doing it in a way where I'm languaging it and framing it within a spiritual framework, because that's what makes sense to her and that's what she wants to relate to and that's what motivates her to be a better person in her life.
Mm.
So it's like I can't have a modality because
Yeah.
every person's different.
Yeah, that's good. That's actually why you have many modalities. That's you've needed to have developed many, so
Mhm.
a lot of people will benefit. Did you have any problem with saying intervention? Just notice
Yes.
that
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because I mean intervention, as I've been also in the beginning, I was like, oh, are we going to sit down, talk
Yeah.
about that you're going to rehab? But actually, it just means like, even if I say, what do you feel in your body? That's supposed to be an intervention in my training. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that okay, I'm gonna center here for this one. I think
Mm.
that it is essential in our training for every one of us to be trained in modalities and interventions and understanding why it is we're doing what we're doing and spend many, many, many hours practicing it through supervision before we become licensed and start working with people as a licensed clinician. However, once we become licensed, I think continuing to hold it within what is a medical model and also trying to in some way, and this is where that kind of language gets tricky, is sometimes it can keep us trapped in a place of thinking that we either have more power than we actually do, what our role is. I think it brings confusion to what our role is. And I actually think that it can create hierarchical dynamics that can potentially lead into even abusive situations between the clinician and the client. But I also think that naturally in this work, we feel inadequate and insecure at times. And our interventions and theories, I believe, and this is going to be very controversial, are the things we have to hang our hats on to endure the anxiety it takes to stay in this process of being with people.
Okay, then in the end, I started to understand you. Okay, no, I think that, okay, so you're talking about interventions, right? Yeah. And okay, we can hang our head on it. Like, it's actually because we are not secure that we need the technique, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, that's how you say it. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely recognize that. So that's why in the beginning it can be actually really nice and I think good for therapists to have like these are the questions and then practice
Yes.
that until you don't need the paper anymore, right?
That's it right there. It's the same with the astrology. You've got to go step by step and learn the
Mm.
system and practice it, get trained in it, form yourself in it to be ethical, and then to be able to let it go and know when you're using different things and why, and that it's a choice and you're doing it intentionally and consciously versus as a habitual reflex or an indoctrination, the belief that your way is the right way.
Yes.
There is no such thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, this is such a good point to have up, especially when you're a nerd like me and I like to study different paths. And I also like to go to therapists who have this or that method. But then I also meet people who do that thing, right? Where they lean back and say, we'll use whatever is relevant. But I wanted to, I wanted to try this method, right?
I can only say this because of the length of time that I've been doing it. And like if you would have talked to me even 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to language it in this way. I would have had a different perspective. But the older I get, the less ideological I become across the
Hmm.
board in my life.
Hmm.
And that includes as a therapist and an astrologer. And I think a pitfall in the astrology world is everybody's kind of more or less drunk their own Kool-Aid, and it very quickly can become dogmatic.
Yeah.
Like Hellenistic is the best, whole house system is the best, this is the best, this is the right way. And we're in these like arguments with each other about who's doing it better. And I'm just like, this very unappealing to me because I
Mm.
don't think that's how life works. I don't think that's how the divine works.
Yeah.
Don't think that's the point.
Yeah, and that's why I think astrology can help us, right? To go up to that higher vantage point and see it from that place. Like today, so you haven't had much of your day yet, right? And I have had most of my day as we speak. And so I've had clients in I work in drug rehabilitation,
Mm.
and we have the moon in Leo, right? So I was curious how that would form, and it did form like that. Like the first client I had was, that's we found her special gift. And the last client I had brought his guitar. You know,
Oh,
he brought his guitar and gave me a concert. I mean, that's amazing for the Leonian
oh,
quality, right?
that's so beautiful.
Yeah. And so, I mean, so we can't, when we know the astrology, we can't hold on to, oh, it's just this or that method because it just takes us up, right?
I love your willingness to be able to see your client bring in the guitar and be the person who witnesses this concert and receives it, and then sees the moon in Leo and says, wow, what a celebration of this. And like, that is theurgy. Like, you're literally embodying the divine and allowing it to be what it wants to be in its authentic expression, coming through that person in you in this moment, connected to the transits on the world stage of the anima mundi, the soul of the world. And
Yeah.
you're allowing that to happen. And we have no idea what that meant to this person.
Yeah.
God, I would think it meant a whole lot.
But it did to me as well, you know?
Yeah,
This is the best kind of therapy
the best.
where we touch each other. I mean, yeah, I was really touched because it took me into the timeless.
Mm.
And that's what we do here, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
think
it
especially as a Pisces, yeah.
yeah, and I have a part of me who's like at work and thinking, okay, I have to keep track of time because now this is happening. I kind of know, oh no, this is happening. I'm hearing music. Someone in front of me is playing. I'm gonna go into this Zen, yeah, state of
Mm.
mind. So this is good for parts work. There's another part of me who's like looking at, I have to remember, I have to go at a certain time, you know? But
The
yeah,
Saturn in you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, thank you for hearing that as well. That's just what I
Oh,
come from. But
oh.
but Mannah, we are doing an interview. Come on.
Oh, there's the Saturn again.
Yes. Oh, yes. So, okay. So I was in my questions to you. I have thought about asking you of different significators for neurodivergence. I mean, is Chiron something? Because that's one of your really big themes as well. Does Chiron have anything to do with neurodivergence, do you think?
I think Chiron is probably the archetype that we have the closest approximation of the nature of being human. I think being human is inherently chironic. I think that our divine nature coming into the manifest physical world is inherently, in part, traumatic. Being born, um, having consciousness, having self reflective consciousness, I
So you
think,
would say, so you're saying we all have traumas. You're into
yeah,
that? Yes. Okay, good. Yeah.
yeah, yep, we all have traumas. Um, uh, Being human, in part, is traumatic. Being on earth is traumatic. Pain and suffering is a shared universal experience that every human has, and it's a big part of the Chiron journey. But I think that you can look at where Chiron is in the natal chart by sign, house, and the aspects that it forms to the specific path that your pain and suffering um, is centered around, and the road in which you get to walk if you choose to walk through that door for certain levels of healing and wholeness that can come through by staying with the wound and the pain that is core to you.
Ah,
And that's a choice we each get to make, whether we do that or not. If we run away from it and deny it, or we face it and learn to not just live with it, but from it, then a certain level of wisdom and mastery. And I also believe manifestation and co creation is granted to us because of our willingness to do what I believe is God's work.
wow. Wow. And okay, just, it's like I have to ask you about every the last thing you say, but then the other questions, I'm coming back to you. I'm coming back to you. But just when you said God's work, what do you mean?
Mm, I think this is core to the spiritual traditions and also in recovery, which is because each of us suffers, that is our sacred. And when we stay in relation to that, healing happens for us and it ripples out and for those around us, versus when we don't, we cause more pain and suffering to ourselves and also to those around us. And so part of God's work is in the chironic path is because each of us has pain, but we also have the wisdom to bring about healing and wholeness. If we choose to take that into us, then we are conduits and facilitators of bringing more love and compassion to the world, versus more pain and suffering or abuse.
Okay, and so my original question there was, is there any connection to neurodivergence? And that's a no, right?
No, yeah.
Okay, so okay, let me ask you another way, because we were talking earlier about this movement that more and more people are now identifying with being neurodivergent. Does that have to do with any trauma of ours? Or what does that have to do with for you? What do you think?
I want to make sure I understand your
Yeah,
question.
I mean, just years back, I'm not even sure how many years this movement have been, because then I'll meet someone who says, "Oh, I was diagnosed 20 years ago." But I think it's a it has really grown exponentially in the last 6 years, right? With people getting diagnosed with ADHD and seeing all of my symptoms is because of that. Late diagnoses.
Yes. That's because within the field of neurodiversity, we're understanding better what it is. And
Mm.
we're also being given the lens to see it. And so, what used to be only a stereotypical expression of it or only in boys was mainly happening. The reason why the number of diagnoses is increasing isn't because there's more of it today than there used to be. It's because we understand it better and we can see it better and more clearly, particularly also in girls and women, where it does, for the most part, present differently than it does in boys and men.
Okay. And so do you see any connection to trauma?
I think that people who are neurodivergent probably experience more trauma in their life because it there's different reasons for that, but it's mostly because our society is not yet built to include and accommodate people
Ah,
who are neurodivergent.
ah,
Also, because we tend to be more sensitive, and that's because we don't have the same filter in our brain neurologically that neurotypical people do. We take in more of everything, more data, information, and sensing. For example, the autistic brain at standstill is operating at 40% more than a neurotypical brain. And that's because we don't have the same pruning that happens early in life of the synapses. In the neurotypical brain, the brain decides, I don't need these connections here. They don't, that's not necessary information. So it prunes it. And so they don't pick up on it. But the autistic brain doesn't do that. There's two kinds of autistic brains, but one of them is hyperconnectivity, and that's the one my brain has. And so I'm more sensitive to, for example, light. I actually most of the time have to wear special glasses. I don't do it when I'm doing interviews, but I have a light sensitivity that makes it difficult for me to, um, you know, to see. And that's common in neurodivergence because of our brain not being able to filter out the sensory experience, and in this case, light. Other people, it's sound, other people, it's touch. And the last thing I'll say there is usually whatever our gift or ability is connected to the place where we have hyposensitivity. So I'm sensitive to light, but I have the gift of sight.
okay. So the gift is together with the sensitivity.
Yeah, and this is where it's chironic, is your gift is in the wound. your giftedness, your ability comes from the wound that you have.
And that's the same with neurodivergence.
Yeah.
Okay, so it has to do with each other.
It always comes back around paradoxically, doesn't it?
It's all interrelated. Oh, okay, great. Oh, but I'd love to hear more about. I felt like you were maybe interrupting yourself earlier because I was like, this is no, this is good stuff. Like how, and I also feel like you're, as you can maybe hear from my questions, I'm more used to talking about it because of trauma, like the brain development due to trauma. Maybe when you were in the womb,
Mm-hmm.
uh, in the environment later.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm hearing you, this is a bit of a different lens, and it's more focused on there are certain ways that the brain can work. And you have you said the connectivity one, the
Yeah, hyperconnectivity.
hyperconnectivity. Yeah.
Yeah, so my brain works at hyperspeed, so I have, and this connects to my ability with pattern recognition. And this is also why a lot of people would say I'm highly intuitive. Some people would even say psychic. Is it psychic, or am I just have an incredibly fast level of pattern recognition that's happening that seems to be psychic? I
Which
don't
one is
know.
it? You don't know? Oh.
I for a long time thought it was just pattern recognition. Recently, mostly because of my daughter, I think it's also psychic. And I think it's part of the giftedness is the psychicness, but the pattern recognition is like a filter through which the psychicness operates.
Okay, like that. But do you notice the patterns connecting? Do you consciously notice that? Okay.
Most of the time.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, because then that's how you maybe would say, oh, she's not a psychic. She just noticed all of these things and put them together. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it works, I mean, if it helps people,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a gift either way.
Mm-hmm.
What did you want to say? Like that's one way, the hyperconnectivity. What could another way be?
The other way is hypo. So the senses can either come through in a hyper way or a hypo way. So if it's hypo, it's slower or it needs more input in order to be stimulated.
Ah,
So that can happen with the brain, but it also can happen with the eight senses. So some people who are autistic have hyper auditory, so they need to wear headphones because sounds are louder and more disruptive, and they're not able to tune out the difference between you talking to me here and a car driving down the road. But
yeah.
if you have hypo auditory and you're autistic, then you like to be at a concert where the speaker is in your ear
Oh
because
no.
you need more stimulation to experience what's going on. And so you tend to be sensory seeking, moving towards the sensation versus sensory avoidant, where you're trying to cocoon to get out of the overwhelm of the sensory experience. But the difference there is what makes it autistic is that it's hyper or hypo. It's different than the typical way of experiencing, in this case, sound. But it doesn't, like saying someone's autistic, you don't know if they're hyper or hypo in any of the senses or in their brain. And that's why it's a spectrum in part and presents so differently.
Would you then be able to guess if they are the hypo or hyper from the chart?
Eh, I don't know. Maybe, you know,
Assess, not guess, assess, I meant.
yeah, like for example, my daughter is uh sensory seeking. She's hypo in most of her senses.
So she
So
needs more stimulation.
she needs more stimulation. You see this in people who, for example, do extreme sports, because also often what's correlated in someone who's hypo and sensory seeking is they tend to have less fear and they don't register, their nervous system doesn't register threats in the same way. So you see someone who does, for example, free climbing, solo climbing without a rope,
Yeah.
sensory seeking, hypo. Okay, yeah, so that's my daughter, and she's
Okay.
born with Sun opposite Mars, T squaring Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn. Can I
Hmm.
see her extreme nature and needing more stimulation and not having fear? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it really intense to raise that human being in chart? Yes, it's extremely difficult to keep her alive and keep her safe until
Yeah.
she's able to register those things for herself.
Yeah. That something is dangerous too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But some neurodivergent people are opposite of that. You know, they don't want to leave their room. They don't want to leave the
Yeah.
house. They don't want to go to school. They don't want to go into crowds because it's too much stimulation.
Yeah. Okay. And
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 And if you don't understand that about the child or children you're raising, you're more likely going to traumatize them by accident, unintentionally, by trying to put them in situations that their brain and nervous system literally is not hardwired for.
yeah, this is I'm so glad you brought that up because I managed to forget it already. That's right. So that's a, a correlation as well, a connection as well to trauma is that the effect of it and the way that people meet you and don't know that this is different. But okay, so we're ending really soon, but I just feel like there's something about the time we're in, the awareness of this that has grown that can be used for good, right? But could it also be used not for saying, I mean, stigmatizing? I think it's better now. It can maybe be kind of cool to have it, but we are all on a spectrum in a way, right? Can it be more normal?
I hear that, and that's something that a lot oftentimes neurodivergent people say. Um,
Okay.
you know, here's the thing: is no, we're not all on a spectrum.
Okay.
Um, Roughly 10% of the population is neurodivergent, and that just simply means you're neurologically hardwired differently. You have a different brain. That's really what it means in the most simple way. And that is the reason why we call that neurodivergent instead of neurotypical is because most other people aren't like that. So I don't
Yeah.
think helpful to say we're all on the spectrum because in some way it's an erasure of our difference.
Okay. Yeah.
And understanding those differences matter in order to give the proper support and accommodations and advocacy that people who are neurodivergent need in order to live a more um, fulfilling, safe life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you know, autism is not a bad word. I'm autistic. I think it's important to say that.
Yeah.
I'm also disabled. You can't see it here because I'm 2E. I'm twice exceptional. So my gifts cover up the ways in which I'm disabled. And so you're seeing my gifts here, but there's a lot of things that I need in order to function on a daily basis that you wouldn't know unless you lived with me. And my husband
Yeah.
does most of those things for me. He cooks all my meals. He takes care of all of my laundry. He takes care of all the chores. And I also don't have very good fine motor skills. So my hands don't work. My brain, my hands aren't connected in the way that they would need to be to do small work. And so there's a lot of things I'm not really able to do that I need to ask help for. I have to ask for a lot of help to be able to live. But I've been able to use my gifts to create a career and a life and a schedule that accommodates the ways in which I'm disabled.
I'm so glad you're sharing this, the personal and also the like you're educating me here.
Hmm.
This is really good. I'll stop saying we're all on a spectrum in this area anyway.
Hmm.
But I think it's a Pisces thing. I'm a Pisces, and
Yeah.
so any hierarchy, I'm like, but we're all the same. It's a tendency of mine to do that.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
see it's really important to actually keep it in the places where it's at, so it doesn't wash anything away of what we've learned.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're all human and we all
Mm,
deserve love and
yeah.
inclusion and support. But as just, I know we're ending, but as one example, it's like it's it's even harmful to expect a neurodivergent child to meet the same milestones as other children because those are neurotypical milestones.
Yeah.
And the neurodivergent child isn't behind because their milestones are different than a neurotypical. So we're not trying to make people who are neurodivergent neurotypical, but I also don't need people who are neurotypical to be neurodivergent. We need neurotypical people. That's
Yeah.
it's part of what makes the world go round. And I
Yeah.
do believe in part that the divine intelligence of roughly 10% of the population being autistic is meant to be that way.
Right.
I think that proportion makes sense to me.
Mm. I'm so I'm so intrigued. I'm like, wow, okay, I'm so glad that you're sharing this. And I think this it's also good that you said what you did earlier because people will look at you and like, oh, artistic. I mean, how does that add up? Because, but is it masking? Is that what you do? What would you call it? Or is it just it's behind the scenes?
Part of it's masking, yeah.
Okay.
But what you see in me is and this is the ways that it can often be different in girls and women is, um, for example, I the way that it manifested for me as a child is I'm hyperlexic. So I learned to speak at a very young age. My vocabulary is very formal. I speak in scripts. I memorize chunks of language and then replicate it in conversation so that I can make sense of something, or so I can be try to be understood by you. I taught myself to read at a very young age, but I lacked comprehension of what I was reading. So everyone was like, wow, she's reading at an advanced stage, but I wasn't comprehending any of it. I also have a lack of boundaries. I also like have too much eye contact instead of looking away. Um,
Oh.
I penetrate into people's spaces instead of move away. You're also
Mm.
noticing that my special interest is humans. So
Mm.
if your special interest is humans and you're an extrovert and you're female and you're socially adaptable and you're masking, it's going to be hard to tell in this moment. But if you came and you spent time with me and you saw my whole 24/7 day, you would go, oh, that's different.
I see. I see. Oh, that's interesting. And also, there's a part of me liking it. The HDHD part of me likes it as well because of what you said around, the practical stuff. Because my life, not my life. I was about to say my life. My room, my living space is a mess. I've stopped saying I'm a mess. I've stopped
Mm,
using that. But
mm,
and so I'm a single woman, and I I've dealt with very low income. Okay, I just got this job that I'm hoping is gonna help things out. But even with a very low income, in the recent years, I've prioritized to have cleaners come, cleaning help. That I pay, and people will say, "How can you use those kind of money? Why don't you just do it yourself?" And it's a continual embarrassment of mine and struggle. But I feel like, Jessica, that the money, when I pay them every month, I'm like, this is the best money used in a way.
yeah,
It's like, it is
yeah.
so important for me to be able to breathe because I apparently cannot have a space clean like that.
Well, what I appreciate about what you're saying right now so vulnerably is it's a deep honoring of yourself. And this is a practice of self-love. And so loving yourself and honoring yourself is accepting that's a limitation I have. I'm not
Yeah.
able to do that and I need an accommodation. So the cleaners from my vantage point is an accommodation.
Yeah.
And it's important to see it that way instead of I am a mess or there's something wrong with me or why can't I just grow up or why can't I get it together. That's a way that we can not know that we're causing harm to ourselves because we're trying to make ourselves do or be something that is actually, I'll say, part of our disability.
Yes. Yes, and that's what I feel like recent years, this awareness of it has helped me accept and see in that different light. So don't you think it's in the right direction?
Better than ever and
Yeah.
getting better every day. We're becoming
Yes.
more neuroaffirming every day. And that's why the more that we talk about it, the more that we uh, make it part of the human experience instead of it being something wrong or
Yeah.
bad or even
Yeah.
caused by trauma. It
Okay.
the neuroaffirming approach says, no, this is a naturally occurring part of the human species in our evolution, and there's nothing wrong with it. And there's gifts that come with it, and there's things that we need support around. And every human has gifts and every human needs support. But when you're neurodivergent, it tends to be more amplified in your daily experience.
Mm. And I really liked how you've educated me and how you've said something against what I've said. And I also wanted to say that last point that it's not, you don't think it's because of trauma. I don't want
No.
you to be afraid of disagreeing with me because I need the correction here, right? And
Mm.
the bigger perspective.
I think part of the reason why that's present is because it's part of the way society has indoctrinated us to look at ourselves as being neurodivergent, as being deviant. It's not
Yeah.
deviant. There's nothing wrong or less, or it's not because of trauma or our parents. No, literally, it's because God made us this way.
Mm. We're just, there's just supposed to be 10% of that population and whatever else, different percentages of us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in the
Yeah.
word neurodiverse. We bring diversity. It's like if
Yeah.
every bird was the same or every tree was the same. Ecosystems thrive on diversity of
Mm.
life. The same
Mm.
is true in the human population. There's so many ways we're diverse, and one of those is neurologically, and that is part of what makes our species survive and thrive is because of that diversity. And we're
Yes.
part of that. We're part of that diversity. And we might not look like the majority of the birds, but we're still a bird and we're part of it. We're meant to be
Yeah.
here.
Absolutely. Yeah, okay. So here in the end, I want to speak a bit about your astrology. And I want to lead with this question that I have in my mind, that how can you honestly say that it doesn't have anything to do with Pisces and Aquarius as archetypes, as signatures? That can be in different ways in the chart, but it must have something to do with Pisces and Aquarius, doesn't it?
Astrology?
No, neurodivergence.
Oh. This is part of my worldview and my metaphysics is Pisces and Aquarius don't cause anything, just like no signs or planets cause anything. They're energies that help us best make sense of and understand a phenomenon. And so, does neurodivergence have a special relationship with the energies of Pisces and Aquarius? Yes. Does Pisces and Aquarius cause neurodivergence? No. Can you have zero Pisces and Aquarius planets, rising angles in your chart and still be neurodivergent? Yes.
Ah, okay. Good enough. Good enough. I just feel that they consequently show up one way or another when people have a different intelligence, like either the Aquarius higher intelligence or the Pisces kind of artistic intelligence. And so I'm trying to make it into a segue of your chat. Um, but so,
Okay. Please,
and you've
please.
said that it's public, right? So I'm allowed to speak
Oh,
about
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Come on.
But it's just that you, well, like you've mentioned, the Pisces ascendant you have, and a couple of planets there in Pisces, and you also have Uranus right there in your midheaven, right? So yeah, can you relate to what I'm saying? Like it seems like
Absolutely.
that would do something to our neurology to embody those archetypes.
Yeah. So the way that I see that is the expression of me as an astrologer and psychotherapist. I am also autistic, and all of that together is moving through in a way that comes across as Pisces rising, Jupiter, Mars rising, Uranus at the midheaven. I
Right.
could have this same chart and these same proclivities and not be autistic, and it wouldn't come through in the same way. But I
Mm.
also could not have Pisces or Aquarius, and maybe I would be autistic, and instead I would be a um, air traffic controller, and my special interests are airplanes, and I would have more of a scientifically minded mind, but I don't.
Yeah, but that would still be like some kind of higher mind, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's good. It's good to do these mind games. What came first, Who is embodying who and what? So yeah, I like that. It's good for my inspiration and ongoing learning here. I do not pretend to know. But we're all just tracking in the charts, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So th- yeah, the symbols are. So do you want to say anything about your own chart? I don't dare to say too much. What do you
I was very touched actually hearing what you were saying, and I love that you picked out those parts of me. Those
Mm,
are very treasured parts of me. I
yeah.
cherish those, and I appreciate you taking the time to look at my chart and
Ah,
offer me that. It's very rare for anyone to look at my chart and have the courage to say anything to me.
yeah, exactly. I said something and I said I don't dare to say anything.
Oh no, I love it. I love it. It means so much to me. It's
Oh,
very special.
but it is, I think, highlighted in your chart from what I mentioned, but also then Neptune is close to that Uranus at the top of your chart. So it's tapping into something else.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. I feel that way.
Yeah.
And you know, I've been that way my whole life. And when I found astrology, I became an astrologer when I was 20. It literally felt like the moment I'd been waiting for my entire life. It felt
Oh,
like a moment of homecoming and destiny. And it was this like, and my breath got taken away. And I was like, oh, I knew it, universe. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I knew it. I knew it. Yay.
yeah. Yes.
I thought something like that was going on here. Nobody was talking about it. Now all
Yeah.
I want to do is spend the rest of my life, speaking the good word. And the Uranus at the midheaven is wanting to share it with the world. And it's my profession, it's my vocation. And the Neptune up there is, it's spiritual, it's my metaphysics. It's about healing and wholeness and intuition and inclusivity and compassion and being better humans, right? It's very a Piscean quest for sure. And it's
Yeah, and
me
you
as well.
mentioned, you just said the word earlier, your metaphysics, right? So that's not maybe a common thing to say, my metaphysics, it's
Yeah.
you actually have a metaphysics, right?
I have a very highly felt and thought through metaphysics.
Yeah.
And I think we all need to, especially as astrologers, understand what our metaphysics is, because our metaphysics, more than anything else, and combined with our psychology, is where our interpretation comes from. The way we interpret, how we talk about the planets, and our understanding of what's going on here comes from our metaphysics. And if we don't understand that, then we're speaking
Mm.
unconsciously.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, okay. I can see that because that's actually, we've talked a lot about that. Like, okay, what comes first and how does this work? And then that influences how you would interpret
Mhm.
it all for a client. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, okay, Jessica. So I don't know if I did you any proper introduction really, but but you have a large YouTube channel so people can hear a lot more from you, and you are really one of the leading voices within this field. So
Oh,
Trust Psyche. It's a few days old, right? I mean, to me, it's what this is your business of putting astrology and psychology together.
yeah. I'm so touched. Thank you. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what you do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's
so
what I
much.
do.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing it and inspiring us
Oh,
and thank you for this. It's hard to stop speaking with you, I feel. But
oh, thank you. Likewise, I've just so much enjoyed being here, and I hope we get to do it again in whatever way feels good. And it's a gift for me that you invited me here and that you did the Saturn work of holding the space and creating the container and all the effort that it goes into making this. Like, it's such a gift to me. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm glad we got the Saturn back. I was just going all Neptune with tears and thinking about the music that I heard today. And
Oh,
but
I
it's
knew
good.
when I saw your sun conjunct my ascendant, I knew we were gonna have a good time. I was like, oh,
And
I
one of us
love
is
that.
probably gonna cry. Yes. So it is. So it is. Thank you so much, Jessica, and have a wonderful day. Enjoy the Leo moon.
Oh, you as well.